Trust isn't shattered in an instant. It erodes, slowly, quietly, until one day, you wake up and realize you don't recognize the person lying beside you. For the past few months, something had changed in Olivia. It was subtle at first. Late nights at work. A little more time in front of the mirror before leaving the house. A new perfume, stronger, sweeter. When I asked, she brushed it off with a smile. "It's just been busy at the office," she'd say, pecking me on the cheek before disappearing out the door. I wanted to believe her, but doubt has a way of creeping in, poisoning even the best of marriages. And the signs kept piling up. She started coming home later and later, always with the same excuse, an important client meeting or some last-minute paperwork. Yet she never seemed tired. If anything, she looked alive in a way she never did with me. Then there was the emotional distance. At first, I thought I was imagining it, but soon it was undeniable. The way she avoided eye contact when we talked. The way she turned away from me in bed, claiming exhaustion. The way she'd glance at her phone with a small, secret smile. One that wasn't meant for me. Something was wrong. I felt it in my gut, and I had to know the truth. So one night, after she left for yet another late shift, I made a decision. I was going to follow her, and whatever I found, I would deal with it accordingly. The city at night had always felt alive. Bright, noisy, unpredictable. But tonight, as I sat in my car outside Olivia's office, the glow of the streetlights felt harsher, the shadows darker. My hands gripped the steering wheel tightly, my heart pounding in my chest. I wasn't supposed to be here. I wasn't supposed to be the kind of man who followed his wife like some paranoid detective in a cheap thriller. But trust was already gone, and all I had left were questions. And I needed answers. At exactly 9:46 p.m., Olivia walked out of the building. She wasn't alone. Two men followed close behind, dressed too casually to be co-workers. One of them whispered something to her, and she laughed. A real laugh. One I hadn't heard in months. I swallowed hard, gripping my phone, snapping a quick photo. This wasn't a friendly business dinner. She wasn't even looking at her car. She was heading toward the sidewalk, toward the black sedan waiting at the curb. The taller man opened the back door for her, and Olivia, my wife, stepped inside without hesitation. What the hell was she doing? I took a deep breath and pulled into traffic, keeping a safe distance as I followed. The car weaved through the streets of downtown, past the late-night restaurants, the bars pulsing with neon lights. I kept my eyes locked on their taillights, my mind racing with possibilities. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe this was nothing. But then they pulled into a hotel parking lot. A nice one. Luxury. The kind we had only stayed in for anniversaries. I felt a cold chill creep down my spine. My hands trembled as I watched Olivia step out, adjusting her dress, smoothing her hair. She looked excited. The two men flanked her as they walked through the entrance.
No hesitation. No guilt.
Like this was just another routine. I sat frozen in my car, gripping the wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. This wasn't dinner. This wasn't work. This was something much, much worse. And I wasn't leaving until I knew exactly what it was. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to think. Rushing in like a lunatic would get me nowhere. The front desk wouldn't just hand me her room number. I needed another way. I pulled out my phone, fingers trembling as I scrolled through my contacts. Then I found him. Mark, an old college friend. We hadn't spoken in a while, but I knew one thing. He worked security for this exact hotel chain. I tapped his name. The phone rang twice before he picked up. Jake? Damn, man. Been a long time. I forced a chuckle, trying to keep my voice steady. Yeah, it has. Listen, I need a favor. Mark hesitated. What kind of favor? I exhaled, gripping the phone tighter. I think my wife is cheating on me. I just saw her walk into your hotel with two guys. I need to know what room she's in. Silence. Then a sigh.
Shit, man.
Please, Mark. I pressed. I'm not going to cause a scene. I need to know. Another pause. Then the sound of typing. A few seconds later, he spoke. Room 1125. 11th floor. A cold chill ran through me. "Thanks, Mark," I said quietly. "Don't do anything stupid, Jake." I hung up without answering. The elevator ride-up felt like it lasted an eternity. My body was numb, but my mind raced, playing through every possible scenario. Maybe this was a misunderstanding. Maybe she was just meeting them for drinks. But deep down, I knew. I already knew. The hallway was quiet when I stepped out onto the 11th floor. The lights were dim, the air thick with the scent of expensive cologne and freshly cleaned carpets. I found room 1125. I stopped in front of it, my breath shallow, my hands shaking. Then a sound. A laugh. Her laugh. My head spun, my vision blurred. I took a step forward, then I noticed it. The door. It wasn't fully closed. Tiny gap. Just enough. Just enough to see. I pulled out my phone, thumb hovering over the record button. For a moment I hesitated. If I pressed it, if I filmed this, there would be no going back. No lies.
No excuses.
Only the truth. I hit record, and then I pushed the door open just slightly. The screen lit up, capturing everything. And what I saw destroyed me. My wife. My Olivia. On her knees between them, her hands roaming, her lips parting as she leaned in. Her body eager, wanting, hungry. I felt my breath catch in my throat, my entire body locking up. I should have stormed in, should have screamed, should have dragged her out by the wrist and demanded answers. But I didn't. I just stood there, filming, as everything I thought I knew about my wife fell apart. This wasn't just betrayal. This was who she was. And as I watched, frozen in pure disgust, I realized something even worse. She wasn't doing this for money. She was doing this because she loved it. And in that moment, I knew this wasn't my wife anymore. She was a stranger. I didn't know how long I stood there, staring through that small gap in the door, my phone recording every sickening second. Time didn't feel real anymore. The woman I had shared my life with, the woman who once whispered she couldn't imagine being with anyone else, was now on her knees with two men, touching them like she had been starved for this. Like this was who she truly was. A cold, sharp pain stabbed through my chest. I had imagined betrayal before. I had feared it, suspected it, but nothing could have prepared me for this. She wasn't hesitating. She wasn't nervous or guilty. She was eager, enthralled. A disgusting heat burned in my throat, while rising as I clenched my fist so tightly I thought I'd shatter the phone in my hands. I should have burst in, should have ended this right there. But I didn't, because right now, I needed proof. I steadied my shaking hands, keeping the phone angled just right. Every second of footage was a knife to the gut. Every moan, every touch, every glance she shared with them. It was another piece of me dying. Then one of the men spoke. "How long do you think you can keep this up?" Olivia laughed, and looked up at him through her lashes. "As long as I want." I felt my blood freeze. She wasn't being blackmailed. She wasn't manipulated. She was choosing this. I forced myself to keep recording, even as my vision blurred with rage. Then the other man smirked. "And your husband?" Olivia's lips curled into a cruel smile. "He's too busy being a good, faithful little husband. He has no idea." Something inside me snapped. I wanted to throw the door open, drag her out of that room, and let her see the rage, the humiliation, the betrayal painted across my face. But I didn't. Not yet. Because now it wasn't just about catching her. It was about ruining her. I ended the recording and backed away from the door, my entire body trembling. My mind was cold, calculating, ruthless. If Olivia wanted to destroy our marriage so easily, if she thought she could humiliate me without consequences, then I would make sure she paid for it in front of everyone. I had a plan now. Her birthday was in 2 weeks. She wanted a celebration, a room full of family, friends, people who thought she was perfect. She was going to get her wish. But this year, her gift was going to be exposure. And when I was done, she wouldn't just lose me, she'd lose everything. I drove home in silence. Not because I was calm. Not because I had accepted what I saw, but because my rage had turned into something colder, sharper. The video was saved. Evidence. I played it in my mind over and over again, her laughter, her words. Asterisk, he has no idea. Asterisk. She thought she was untouchable. She thought I was weak. She thought she would never get caught. But now, she had no idea that the man she came home to every night wasn't the same fool who kissed her goodbye in the morning. She was about to learn what it meant to betray someone like me. The next morning, Olivia acted normal. She walked into the kitchen with a soft smile, stretching, running a hand through her hair like she hadn't spent the night on her knees for two strangers. "Morning, babe," she said casually, opening the fridge. "You're up early." I sipped my coffee, watching her. I could have said something, could have thrown my mug at the wall, screamed, told her I knew everything. But that would have been too easy. Instead, I smiled, calm, controlled. "Couldn't sleep," I said smoothly. "Thinking about your birthday." She turned, eyes lighting up. "Really?" I nodded. "I want it to be special." She walked over and kissed my cheek, her lips lingering. "That's sweet," she murmured. I had to resist the urge to wipe her off of me. "I was thinking something big this year," I said, setting my mug down. "A party. You know, friends, family, coworkers, everyone." She grinned. "You hate parties." I chuckled. "I'd do anything for you." She beamed, and I sat there, staring at her like she was the woman I married, like she wasn't rotting underneath. She had no idea that in 2 weeks, the party she was so excited for would be the night I ended her. I spent the next days preparing. I transferred all the footage from my phone onto a USB drive. The video wasn't going anywhere. Then I started spreading the word. I told her best friends about the party, told her parents, told my friends. "Make sure you're there," I said. "It's going to be a night she'll never forget." They all thought I was just being romantic. I almost laughed. Every day, Olivia kissed me goodbye before leaving for work, completely unaware that she had already signed her own death sentence. Every night, she came home, smiling, clueless. But that was fine. Let her enjoy these last 2 weeks of her perfect little lie. Because when the night of her party arrived, she would have nothing left. The days leading up to Olivia's birthday passed in quiet anticipation. She had no idea that every conversation, every smile, every stolen glance she gave me was like gasoline to the fire of her own destruction. She still came home late. She still smelled like men's cologne. Still gave me lazy kisses that meant nothing. And every night, I laid beside her, staring at the ceiling, knowing that soon, her world would collapse. The invitations were sent. Friends, family, everyone who thought they knew who Olivia was. Even her parents, her loving, doting parents, who still called her their perfect daughter. They were all coming. And none of them had any idea that what they were about to witness would destroy her forever. 2 nights before the party, Olivia curled up next to me on the couch, scrolling through her phone. She was glowing. "You're really going all out for this, huh?" she teased, nudging me with her shoulder. "You never plan anything." I smiled, pressing a kiss to her temple. "I just want to make sure it's a night you'll always remember." She sighed, content. "You're the best." I fought the urge to laugh. Instead, I just held her close, resting my chin on her head, feeling the seconds tick down to her reckoning. The night before the party, I made the final preparations. The USB drive sat in my pocket, containing every second of her filth. I had rented a private event space, set up a projector, made sure that at just the right moment the lights would dim and everyone would see the truth. She thought she was walking into a celebration. She had no idea she was walking into a funeral. The next 24 hours would be the last she ever lived as a respected woman. Because once the video played, she would be nothing. The day of the party arrived, and Olivia was radiant. She spent the morning pampering herself, getting her nails done, trying on outfits, texting her friends about how excited she was. She had no idea that by the time the night was over, no one would look at her the same way again. I watched her from the doorway as she twirled in front of the mirror, adjusting her dress. "How do I look?" she asked with a playful smile. I swallowed down my disgust and gave her an approving nod. Perfect. She beamed, crossing the room to kiss me. I can't wait for tonight, she murmured against my lips. You really outdid yourself this time. I smirked, tucking a stray hair behind her ear. I just wanted to make sure this is a birthday you'll never forget. And it would be, just not for the reason she thought. The party venue was elegant, filled with laughter, music, and people who loved Olivia. Her parents beaming with pride. Her friends dressed to impress. My own co-workers, shaking my hand, congratulating me for putting together such a wonderful night. I shook their hands, accepted their praise, and smiled. None of them knew the storm that was coming. I spotted Olivia across the room, glowing under the attention, sipping champagne with her friends. She was completely at ease, completely unaware. I checked my watch. Almost time. An hour into the party, I took the stage. The microphone felt cool in my hand as I tapped it twice, gathering everyone's attention. The room fell silent. Olivia turned, her eyes lighting up. Everyone, I began, my voice steady, controlled. Thank you all for coming tonight to celebrate my beautiful wife. Scattered applause. Olivia blushed. I wanted to do something special this year, I continued. Something meaningful. Something that truly reflects who Olivia is.
Ich glänzte her.
She smiled, oblivious. I smiled back. Then, I nodded toward the screen behind me. The lights dimmed, and the video began. The first few seconds were harmless. Olivia walking into the hotel lobby. Then the men. The way she touched them. The way she smiled at them like I never existed. Whispers started rippling through the crowd. Someone gasped. Olivia frowned, confusion flickering across her face. Then the scene changed. The hotel room door cracked open, and everything was exposed. Her dress on the floor, her on her knees, their hands in her hair, her moans echoing through the speakers. The crowd erupted. Gasps, shouts. Someone dropped their glass. It shattered against the floor. I watched as Olivia's face morphed from confusion to pure, unfiltered horror. She staggered forward. No, turn it off. But I didn't. I let it play. I let them see. She turned to me, tears already streaming down her face. Jake, please, she screamed. This isn't what it looks like. I laughed. Not what it looks like? I echoed, stepping toward her. Tell me, Olivia, what exactly am I misunderstanding? Because it sure looks like my wife has been whoring herself out for fun. The room exploded. Her parents gasped audibly. Her mother clutched her chest, turning pale. Her father, who had always adored her, looked at her like she was a stranger. Mom, Dad, please, Olivia sobbed, reaching for them. But they stepped back. Don't, her father said, his voice cold. Olivia collapsed. Her friends looked at her with disgust. Some guests turned away, embarrassed. Others whispered amongst themselves. Their eyes locked onto the wreckage of her life unfolding in real time. And me? I stood there, watching the woman who had betrayed me finally break. But I wasn't finished yet, because this night was far from over. The video ended, but the damage was done. Silence swallowed the room, thick and suffocating. Olivia sat crumpled on the floor, gasping for air between sobs. Her mascara streaked down her cheeks. Her perfect world, the life she had so carefully crafted with lies, had just been shattered in front of everyone she loved. I let the moment drag out, let her sit in the humiliation. Then I spoke. Tell me, Olivia, I said, stepping toward her, my voice eerily calm. Was it worth it? She shook her head violently, crawling toward me on trembling hands. Jake, please, I can explain. I yanked my leg back before she could touch me, my lip curling in disgust. Explain, I scoffed. You've been sneaking off to hotels, sleeping with strangers, for fun, Olivia. Not even for money, just because you liked it. So tell me, what exactly do you want to explain? She clutched her chest, her sobs breaking into sharp, desperate gasps. I don't know why I did it, I swear. I love you, Jake. I was lost. I laughed. A cold, bitter sound. Lost, I repeated, shaking my head.
No, Olivia.
You weren't lost. You knew exactly what you were doing. Every night, every lie, every time you looked me in the eye and told me you loved me. She reached for my hand, her face twisted with raw desperation. Jake, please, I can change. I'll stop, I swear. I ripped my hand away like her touch burned. You don't get to beg, I snapped. You don't get to cry and act like you're the victim. Her whole body trembled, her eyes wild with panic. She turned toward her parents, hands clasped together. Mom, Dad. Her voice cracked. Please, say something. Her mother stood frozen, silent tears slipping down her face. Her father, though? He looked at her like she was nothing. We raised you better than this, he said, his voice thick with disgust. You're not our daughter anymore. Olivia let out a strangled wail. No, Dad, please. He turned away. That was the moment she realized. She had lost everything. I inhaled slowly, then exhaled. It was time to end this. I turned to the crowd, lifting my chin. As of this moment, I announced, my voice strong, final, Olivia and I are no longer married. Gasps rippled through the room. Olivia shook her head frantically.
No, no.
Jake, you can't. Please. I love you. I'll do anything. I pulled an envelope from my pocket and tossed it onto the floor beside her. Divorce papers, I said coldly. Already signed. Her eyes widened in horror. You had this planned? She choked out. I smiled. Cruel. Unforgiving. Of course I did. She let out another broken sob, completely crumbling in front of everyone. I turned toward the guests, my chest feeling lighter than it had in months. Enjoy the rest of the night, everyone, I said smoothly. The party's over. And with that I walked away. Outside, the night air was crisp, clean, freeing. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I could breathe. Behind me, I could still hear Olivia's screams, her pleas, but they meant nothing now. She was nothing. I pulled out my phone, dialed my lawyer, and spoke 3 simple words. It's done. And just like that, she was gone from my life. For good. The night air wrapped around me as I stepped outside, crisp and sharp against my skin. The sounds of Olivia's sobs still echoed behind me, but they felt distant now, like something from another life. Because that's exactly what she was now, part of my past. I exhaled slowly, tilting my head toward the sky. It was a clear night, stars blinking down like silent witnesses to what had just happened. For months, I had lived under the weight of suspicion, the slow, creeping death of trust poisoning my marriage. And tonight I buried what was left of it. As I reached my car, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I checked the screen. Jason, asterisk dude. What the hell just happened? Asterisk. Lauren. Olivia's best friend, asterisk Jake. I had no idea she was doing this.
I am so sorry, Stern.
Ryan. Asterisk, I don't even know what to say, man. Are you okay? Asterisk. I stared at the messages for a moment before locking the phone and shoving it back in my pocket. Was I okay? I didn't know. The truth was I felt empty, not sad, not angry, just a deep, bone-deep exhaustion. But maybe that was peace. Maybe peace wasn't some dramatic feeling of relief, it was just the absence of pain. And after everything Olivia had done, I deserved that. The drive home was a blur. I barely noticed the streets, the stoplights, the quiet hum of the city moving on like nothing had happened. But my mind was replaying everything. Her face when the video started playing. The way her hands trembled. The way her entire body collapsed under the weight of her own actions. The moment her father told her she wasn't his daughter anymore. And the worst part? She still didn't think it was her fault. Even after everything, she had begged me to stay. Begged me to pretend, to rewrite reality, to ignore the filth she had dragged into our marriage. But that was the thing about the truth. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. I pulled into the driveway, turning off the engine. The house was dark, cold. empty. For years it had been our home. A place filled with laughter, quiet mornings, lazy Sundays in bed. Now it felt like a stranger's house. I stepped inside, shutting the door behind me. The silence pressed against my ears, thick and heavy. I stood in the foyer for a long moment, just existing. Then, I walked into the living room and sank onto the couch. This was it. The first night of life without her. And as I sat there, staring at the blank television screen, my body tense with the weight of everything I had just done, I realized something. I didn't regret it. Not one bit. The next morning, the world knew. The video had spread faster than I anticipated. People who weren't even at the party had heard. Friends, co-workers, even Olivia's extended family. It was everywhere. By noon, my phone was flooded with messages. Some were from people offering support. Others were from curious spectators, desperate for more details. And then there was Olivia. She had called 16 times. I ignored them all. Her messages were worse. Olivia, asterisk Jake, please pick up. Please, asterisk. Olivia, asterisk you don't understand. I wasn't thinking, I wasn't myself. Asterisk. Olivia, asterisk I know you're angry, but don't do this to us. Don't throw away everything we built. Asterisk. I stared at my phone, a humorless chuckle slipping from my lips. Everything we built? She had burned it down herself. I typed out one response. We were over the moment you stepped into that hotel room. Then I blocked her number. That evening I met with my lawyer. The divorce papers were already prepared. I had made sure of that weeks ago. We sat in his office as he reviewed the final details, flipping through the documents with a practiced efficiency. Once you file this, he said, adjusting his glasses, Olivia will have 30 days to respond. Given the circumstances, I don't expect her to contest anything. But if she does, we'll be ready. I nodded, signing my name at the bottom of the final page. Done. That was it. That was the moment I legally and officially ended Olivia's hold on my life. And the strangest part? I felt nothing.
No sadness. No hesitation.
Just a quiet, steady resolve. I slid the pen across the table, exhaling slowly. It's over. My lawyer gave me a small nod. It is. I shook his hand and left the office, stepping back into the cool evening air. For the first time in years, I wasn't someone's husband. And I had never felt freer. The first night after filing for divorce, I slept like a rock. No tossing and turning. No nightmares of Olivia's betrayal looping in my mind. Just deep, dreamless silence. And when I woke up, there was no confusion. No moment of wondering where she was, or why the other side of the bed was empty. Because I knew. She was gone. And I wasn't broken anymore. That morning I made myself coffee. Not the way Olivia liked it. Not the way I used to make it for her, adding extra sugar because she had a sweet tooth. No, I made it black, bitter, strong. And I drank it while staring out at the yard. The same yard where she used to sit and sunbathe, texting God knows who, planning her next night of overtime. My phone sat on the counter, buzzing every few minutes. Messages, calls. Most were from Olivia. The ones that weren't, friends, co-workers, people who had seen the video, who had heard about the disaster that was my marriage and wanted to either offer sympathy or get the juicy details. I ignored them all, except for one, her father. I stared at his name on the screen for a long moment before answering. A deep sigh came through the speaker. Then his voice, rough and tired. Jake. I took a slow sip of coffee. Thomas. Another pause. Then, I don't even know what to say. I let out a dry chuckle. Neither did she. He exhaled sharply, the weight in his voice heavy. I want you to know if I had any idea I would have, I don't know, stopped her? Raised her better. His voice cracked slightly, filled with something between shame and exhaustion. I didn't say anything, because what was there to say? I had loved his daughter. I had given her everything, and she had spit on it. I'm sorry, Jake, he finally said, voice low. You didn't deserve this. No, I agreed. I didn't. Another pause. Then, she's not staying here. That caught me off guard. What? She tried, he muttered, and I could almost picture him shaking his head. Came crying to us, begging. But my wife couldn't even look at her. And me, his voice hardened. I told her to get out, that she made her choices, and now she has to live with them. For a second, I said nothing. Then, for the first time in days, I smiled. Good, I said simply. I spent the next week rebuilding. Not my house. It was already mine, scrubbed clean of Olivia's presence. But my life. I hit the gym, working out the rage that still simmered under my skin. I met up with friends. The real ones, the ones who stood by me instead of making excuses for Olivia. And I learned to enjoy being alone. No more late nights waiting for a wife who was never coming home. No more pretending things were okay. Just me. And for the first time, that was enough. Then, on a Sunday evening, 2 weeks after filing for divorce, I got one last call. A number I didn't recognize. I answered, already knowing who it was. Her voice came through, small, shaky. Jake. I didn't speak. She sniffled. A deep breath. I don't have anywhere to go. I leaned against the counter, staring out at the yard. The same yard where she had once stood, laughing, acting like she had it all. The same yard where she had ruined everything. I closed my eyes, letting the silence stretch. Then, finally, I spoke. That's not my problem, Olivia. I ended the call. And then, for good measure, I blocked her number. That night, I slept better than I had in years. Because Olivia, she was nothing more than a bad memory now. The divorce was finalized a month later. No drawn-out fights.
No desperate please.
Olivia signed the papers without protest, probably because she knew she had no other choice. The court granted me everything I asked for. The house, the car, the bank accounts we once shared. Olivia, she got exactly $10,000. A symbolic amount. Enough to remind her that she was nothing to me anymore. She tried to fight it at first, sending me long, pathetic emails about how she had lost everything and needed time to get back on her feet. I never responded. She had years to think about consequences. She just never thought she'd have to face them. 6 months after the party, Olivia was a ghost. No one wanted anything to do with her. Her parents still refused to speak to her. Her friends abandoned her, too embarrassed to be seen with her. She lost her job. Not because of me, but because someone leaked the video online. I had nothing to do with it. But I didn't feel bad either. She had spent years pretending to be someone she wasn't. And now, the entire world knew exactly who she was. As for me, I moved forward. I rebuilt my life piece by piece. I found peace in small things. Morning workouts, coffee on my porch, nights where I could actually relax instead of wondering where my wife was. I started traveling again, something I had put on hold for Olivia. And eventually, I started dating again. Not because I needed someone, but because I refused to let her betrayal make me afraid to love again. She wasn't that powerful. One night, nearly a year after the divorce, I was sitting at a cafe, enjoying the quiet hum of conversation around me, when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I already knew who it was. I let it ring, smiling to myself. And then, just like that, I blocked it. For good this time. Because Olivia, she was just a bad story now. And I was free.